Hello and welcome to Saturday Mourning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest anime series. I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore, and joining me today is DC area improv artist and comedian Sean Paul Ellis. How you doing, Sean?
David, I'm fantastic.
Are you
How
sure about that? You sound a little stressed today, buddy.
Oh man, I can't wait to get into this show.
Just save it. Save that energy. We're going to use it. Oh, you've tried the rest. Now try the West Coast. It's Matt Barron. That's all I got for you, man.
Peace and love, motherfucker.
Peace and love. Very well done. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the mid-90s cartoon series, The Bots Master. Now, Sean, I know you're excited about this one, so would you like to give the listeners out there a little bit of a background?
Why bother? I mean, this show is terrible. I should preface everything with saying everything that I'm about to say is with just disdain and hate. This show went for this is what's amazing. This show went for one season, from September 1st, 1993 to May 1st, 1994, and there were 40 episodes in this one season. That was 40 episodes too many. It was originally created by what was it? Saban or Saban Entertainment, however you want to say it. They're the guys who did Samurai Pizza Cats, Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, Power Rangers. They are a French-based company, and when I read that, I just went, ugh, figures.
In French.
It just everything about this just reeked like early 90s trying to be hip and relate to kids and just not getting there.
And that's kids with a Z or two, right?
Kids with 1,000 Z's.
1,000 Z's, which we'll talk about in a minute. But to get into the actual episode itself, did you have any more from history for us before we...
The only big notable thing is that the guy who voiced Dr. Hiss in this, his name was Ian James Corlett. He went on to do the voice of Goku in Dragon Ball Z.
So good for him, because he obviously wasn't, putting too much food on the table with Dr. Hiss. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
He did not let Boxmasters hold him back in terms of his career.
So good for that guy. But yeah, Baron, do you want to talk about Botsmaster and what exactly this show was for a little bit?
Sure. So, in a nutshell, basically the year is 2025. So, we've already got a dystopian view of what's come ahead. But the robotic engineer Ziv Zizi Zoolander, and I've got a whole shtick about that name later. Basically, he created robots that became commonplace. They were called the 3A's series. Which just brought me back to like the shitty car or roadside service AAA brings, but
just not as
basically,
good.
Yeah, exactly. So Robotics Megafact Corporation, which they called RM Corp in the series, was headed up by Sir Leon Lewis Paradigm, who wants to use Krang chips to override his own robots' programming to take over the world, and he has the seductive Lady Frenzy and the abysmal Dr. Hiss helping him out. So basically it's like a porn star and Peter Dinklage, helping him take over the world. But, basically, ZZ finds out that the Krang chips are going to be used to take over the world, so he starts his one-man multi-robot guerrilla war against RM Corp and LLP to stop that from happening.
Yeah, and like Sean said, that's just like vintage 90s stuff right there. Forget the Z's, forget the acronym names, forget all that stuff that just adds just a terrible, terrible flavor to this show. But I mean, just the premise right there, it's like, robots versus robots, so everything is just completely insane on the screen, just robot pieces flying all over. Yeah.
Dave, if you just summed it up, you could just say orphan terrorist.
Orphan terrorist. That works pretty good. That sounds like
the entire show.
But that could be like a new like sci-fi series today. You could probably get away with Orphan Terrorist.
Orphan Terrorist.
That's coming. Fall 2015.
It's already in post-production at Fox.
So I want to go back to what Baron was saying. So this guy who, we should notice this.
Yeah, he's
knighted. Title, Sir Louis Leon Paradigm. Mm-hmm. All right, who you find out in the very first episode tells everybody to just call him LLP.
Oh, it's the worst.
Which is the worst. Like, second I heard this, I was like, are they trying to make like a bad like reference to like limited liability partnership?
That's exactly what I thought. Oh, I was already filing my lawsuit.
Why didn't they just call him like S Corp? or just like some other like legal
Torts.
acronym.
They should just call him Professor Torts. I would have been okay with that.
Just Sir Habeas Corpus. Like,
and they don't even like call him LLP to just keep it short, because every time they talk to him or about him or mention him on like a news report, they remind you that his name is LLP, and it's the most irritating thing in a half an hour of irritating things. But go ahead, Sean.
No, it's just it's so frustrating. I just it really is. I mean, because they just LLP. I mean,
LLP.
So the only saving grace in the entire show.
Is there one?
Yes, there is. Is Lady Frenzy. Every time she talks, it sounds like she is mid orgasm.
All right.
It is amazing just to hear the amount of pleasure that comes out of her. I mean, for being LLP's second in command, I mean, she just really takes that job dangerously serious and just makes it sexy.
But
she
doesn't. But here's the crazy. She doesn't do anything. All she sits there and she has a sexy voice, which is so awkward for everyone involved, because you're like, I don't know, I was a 10-year-old kid when I maybe watched this show. So I mean, something is awakening, and I'm not quite sure how to handle that.
And you should continue to let that awaken, Dave. You should cultivate that feeling. It is a sexy feeling.
Oh, it's getting gross in here. It's getting gross. So let's move on to some other crazy names, most of which involve Z. So Baron, you have a couple for us?
Yeah. So the Zoolander thing. I mean, I realize that this is well before the movie Zoolander, but I can't unwatch that movie while watching this show. So I'm just waiting for like Magnum to like just come around the corner, like one of like the Z Boys just pops around a corner, just pops the Magnum look, and robots fucking explode everywhere.
He's only got blue steel to start.
We should get into that whole thing about the Z Boys.
Yeah, so the Street Boys, like Jammers, Tools, Ninjas, like the Sports name. Boys, like D-Nerd. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad because it's like half of this stuff I was like, this is like French people getting a whiff of like West Coast hip hop in the 90s, and they're like, what if we just turn it into a cartoon?
Yeah,
Scratch that, robot.
This cartoon is the spiritual sequel to Boys in the Hood, which I'm not sure if you guys knew that. But if you watch the two back to back, it'll make a lot of sense. But yeah, my God, there are just Z's everywhere. And the funniest thing is, like, it's not just one Z, because one's not enough for 1993. You have to have two on the end of everything. And now remember, so it's just, okay, it could be the kid that's just naming these bots, and he's kind of an idiot kid, even though he's a super genius that can make all these robots. So he's just adding the Z's, right?
I don't think you can say that he's like an idiot. Like, I mean, he has created the most successful line of robots. All right, these 3As, everybody has them. Like,
okay, but are they successful? I mean, let's take the Tony Stark view for a second. Like, Tony Stark kept all the good shit for himself.
Right.
When you got into ZZ's house, it was full of like art robots, like the talking heads on the shelf.
Yeah, so he's just got, for people who aren't familiar with the show, back at his base, which is, we didn't even talk about this because we'll probably get to it in the plot, but he has this massive. Why should we? That is the question of the episode. He's got this underground base that's just like out in the middle of like a national park somewhere, but we'll get to that in a second. So he's got his like workshop space, and there's 5 or 6 differently colored heads, just robot heads, that don't do anything except jabber on and just get completely obnoxious and irritating the entire time.
They're like the Greek annoying chorus
that
just hangs out in the background and like provides narrative commentary on everything that happens in this show.
It's completely unnecessary.
I think this might be a good point to jump into Adios CZ, because we've hit on a couple things there. So why don't we just kind of dive into that, because we're talking about the house, we're talking about the talking heads, and all of that is in the first 2 minutes of that show.
Yeah, and they pack a lot of crazy shit into every like second of the show, because it just jumps from one thing to the next without any really rhyme or reason. So yeah, Baron, do you want to talk about sort of the intro plot, the pilot of the show called Adios ZZ?
Okay, so Adios ZZ is the pilot of the show, Dave, like you said. So basically, in the very beginning, there's a new news conference with LLP, who's talking about the new crank chips. It's going to change everything. Smash cut to ZZ talking about how these crank chips are evil, and he's found everything out. Then there's this absurd escape scene where ZZ's using a few of his homemade robots to get out of the corporate headquarters of RM Corp. and,
Well, he
and just
crosses like a land bridge, and these robots follow
yeah.
him, and he draws their fire in a crowded public place.
And
Like there are
that's a
people
great point.
on this bridge.
That's a great point. I want to talk about that too because there's a moment where he is like Baron or Sean, I forget who mentioned it, but he's waging a guerrilla war with his boys against RM Corp. So at one point he wants to basically like blow up the factory in this episode, right? And
Yeah.
he pauses while he's being pursued by all these other bots, and his boys are like, "Man, we gotta go." He's like, "Hold on, though, we gotta blow this facility, but I need you to go in and check and make sure there's no casualties because I don't want to hurt anybody." Sounds good, right? I mean, that makes sense. He's a hero. He should be worried about, human casualties. That concern lasts for about a half a second because as soon as the other robots come into screen, he's just like, "Fuck it, blow it. Let's get the hell out of here." He blows the place up. I mean, just right, like 1 second later. Doesn't even wait.
And then what's hilarious is when that explodes and he and the two street boys are like blown away. They're blown like hundreds of feet into the air. You can see them like flying above buildings. I was like, why were they not liquefied on the spot? Like the shock wave that would cause you to go that high in the air would have pasted you against the surrounding buildings first.
That's just kind of the thought behind this show is just it's very, I mean, it's obviously cartoonish, but even in this world it's just kind of like anything goes. This army of AAs or 3As or whatever they were called, the army of them, they have like laser cannons and stuff. They can't hit shit. There's thousands of them. They're all aiming at like one kid and his boys, and they can't hit anything. But these boys can shoot back, and they have like pinpoint. Yeah.
David, we stop and we keep saying boys, and it means for everybody.
Oh,
it's
that's right.
Brain-operated young zygotopic zoids.
Yeah. So if you're still with us after that terrible acronym, then I applaud you because that's about as far as Sean could get with this show.
I feel like it was just somebody, they were just like, you know what? Like that's a cool early '90s phrase. Like, what's up, boys?
Boys.
Like let's. I feel like they shoehorned this in there, like to make it work, and it doesn't. It doesn't work at all. Like shame on you, Saban. Like you jerks.
You jerks.
It sounds awful, and it's used 1,000 times every episode.
It was a budgetary use it or lose it situation. They're like, we've got $1 million we need to spend. Let's make this show.
We got all these Z's hanging around.
It's not just for boys. Like in the pilot alone, because I needed to take notes on this. They substitute out a Z for almost everything.
Yeah.
So instead of said, it was Zed. Instead of timing, it was zyming. Practice Zactus. Celebra Z. If you say Zo, Zintz and Supply. I was like, you are just. It sounds. You know what it actually sounds like now that I'm saying it out loud? It sounds like how if we were to make fun of like a bad French trope, and we were like, hey, you guys want something like me? I'll cook it up for a Z. Like it just sounds like they were just like, you know what? We know you guys are making fun of us. Fuck you.
Here's a bunch of Z's.
Yeah, we're just gonna throw it back in your face. Like, damn it.
And the other amazing thing about the Z's and just how much they're like cutting things in everywhere, I felt like that show was seriously just an amalgamation of about 5 different shows, and they just paved a new plot over the top. The car transforming robot, that's obviously a transformer.
Well, we got Krang chips. I mean, you lifted the name
exactly.
Krang.
Teenage Mutant Turtles. I mean, this was.
Yeah, exactly. And the voice, of Dr. Hiss, really sounded like Cobra Commander, and I was like, all right, we got some G.I. Joe stuff. Plus, the laser situation and the laser situation in G.I. Joe, nobody hit anything.
No.
Not only that,
G.I. Joe and Cobra had been battling for years, and nobody had died.
No one ever got hit. Well, and LLP, as they call him, obviously there's the LLP, the legal term, but it was basically Lex Luthor. I mean, let's be honest. He looks exactly like him. Yeah. It's this big, bald, white guy who's like the head of a corporation. Doesn't really do a lot, but has a lot of evil plans. It's basically Lex Luthor. So to Baron's point, this show, they just cherry-picked a bunch of other successful things from Transformers to Ninja Turtles to G.I. Joe and just slapped them all together into this mess.
So, not to mention that I feel like for this show, they were just like, oh man, you know what every other show has? Like, G.I. Joe's got Storm Shadow. The Ninja Turtles have all 4 Ninja Turtles.
Ninjas are in.
It's you know what this doesn't have? we don't have a ninja robot yet.
Not yet.
And they just crammed that in. Like not even like it wasn't even like they were like, you know what, we'll ease into this. Like that second episode is Enter the Nins, which is like the just the dumbest spelling.
Well, let's talk about his name. So it's
robot.
Ninjzz. So you can either keep the J silent like Sean did and clean it up a little bit. It sounds like Nins, or you can just say Ninjas, which is pretty much how it's spelled. So it's a terrible name no matter how you go about it. Now the interesting thing was they didn't just build Ninjas to be like this awesome fighting ninja robot. They didn't just build him and program him to have ninja powers. Do you guys remember how they kind of got the soul of a ninja into this robot? Did you watch that one?
Please tell me they killed another ninja and then just like ZZ had developed some capability to put a soul into a robot.
They more or less like took like archival hologram footage of like this it was basically Bruce Lee. They I forget exactly what they called him, but they were like, oh, he died in like 2013, which was kind of eerie.
Bruce Z.
Bruce Z. I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Z. Like, I'm not even kidding. I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Z. And they're like, oh, one of the greatest martial arts masters ever. Let's just basically upload his soul into this metal robot called Ninjas. Now, Ninjas, the poor guy, is the most competent character probably on this show. He's very quiet.
Which
reserved.
Isn't saying a lot.
No, it's really not. But he's.
But at the same time, though, I want to say, like, it seems like every robot had like a strange inferiority complex. Like, no, because like there was I watched a couple extra episodes, and there was one with Kitty, the child boys.
Oh yeah, so there's a tiny little like pre-pubescent robot. Was his name Kitty?
Yeah, it's Kitty.
That's so terrible. Ugh.
And it's just nothing but disdain for this show. So like he gets in there and he feels left out, like he's not contributing to anything. Like, you're a robot. Like, just cool your jets.
Your literal jets, robot boy.
Yeah, your literal jet. So he steals a car and like goes for a joyride, and what happens is that Ziv feels terrible about like not paying enough attention to him or not being kind enough to this robot that he's created. All right. So he goes like on this like high speed chase to like get Kitty and like bring him back, and ends up getting arrested.
I did not watch. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this one. Maybe.
Don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, Sean. Sean, I did not make it to that episode, but I'm telling you, in what you just described, I have an amazing plot crossover story for Botsmaster to Turbo Teen. What if Kitty steals Turbo Teen? Because then it's kidnapping and Grand Theft Auto.
That kid is going to be amazed when he hits a puddle of cold water.
Ugh. That episode is called ZZ and the Law. I don't recommend watching it.
No, it's terrible.
It's miserable.
Everything's terrible.
No, it's called Breaking Z Law.
God, you're the worst.
So
I'm the
bad.
best.
Did you write for this show?
It's so terrible. What surprised me?
I have to be honest with you. I've been preparing for this for at least 15 minutes.
Well, that's way more than the writers put into the thought of this show, because they start like, so the names again, like Baron mentioned, you got jammers and tools. These are like the construction bots that kind of like, they have jackhammers and they got wrenches and they can take other bots apart. At one point they just kind of give up on the names, like the nerd. The cooking robot is just called Cook, so they pretty much just gave up there. And then you've got these weird little like auxiliary robots. One's called Swang, which I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to be for. And then there's Freehand. Now, Freehand might be my favorite robot because it's just a bizarre and lazy creation. It's basically just like a drone helicopter with a hand. So it's an extra hand whenever they need to like move a pail of water or just like carry something around.
All the cleaning in the place too.
Yeah.
Like he just like carries around like one of those like French like dusters and like clean stuff like around like their compound. Ugh, he's just like.
You know, that brings up an interesting point, because there were a couple different things in this show where, you know, the technology of the future just didn't carry over like you think it would, such as like the French duster situation. And I think it was Setting Sun, that episode where they kidnapped the President of the United States' daughter.
Oh, we'll get to that,
who at the end of the episode uses a payphone in the country to call the FBI.
So let's Adios ZZ, the first episode. really you basically just get introduced to like a cavalcade of characters just with awful Z's in their name.
Yeah, you can't keep any of them straight really because they're just thrown at you.
So I wanna get to the setting sun. I really want to get to the setting sun and just how weird of a finale episode this whole thing really is.
It was
Because
pretty bizarre.
Like at the crux, like, so what happens is that Baron's 100% correct. So LLP, all right, kidnaps the President Bando. He kidnaps President Bando's daughter.
Who elected
right?
this man, President Bando?
But here's the thing, all right? There is a President of the United States,
Exactly.
all right?
And then?
LLP is jockeying the entire 40 episodes for the position of President of the world.
Yeah, so his robots are in pretty much every installation across the world. So at every like level of government, law enforcement, you know, in shops, in restaurant, everything. He's everywhere. So he's
It's not even that. That's a title now. In 2025, President of the World is now a thing. That like people are like, we should care about this.
Yeah.
Like, who are you gonna vote for the next president of the world?
Bando, I don't know. He's a little.
You think of Bando? I don't know. I might
maybe
think
not
about
Bando.
me. I'm being swayed. Like, it's just so like, in order to get the president or to get President Bando's support for world president, he kidnaps his daughter.
Yep.
And like
Solid plan.
doesn't even like bring her to like anywhere like extravagant. They just go to like a cabin in the woods.
You know where he brings her to a friggin' rape cabin. This got weirdly like dark and suggestive, and we'll get to that in a second. Before we start talking about the daughter, though, we should probably mention one of the other human characters who plays a big role in this one. You kind of have to if you want to talk Setting Sun, though, because it's a very terrible yet important part of this plot. So who wants to talk about Blitzy?
So
I love
Nobody.
silence.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
Crickets
run
said-
away.
Blitzy is ZZ's sister, who he actually rescues from a boarding school in Audio CZ. But not to go all the way back,
Yep.
but people at RM Corp think about kidnapping the sister before the guy who is planning terrorist actions considers rescuing his sister. So,
He's the worst terrorist.
obviously he has not thought these matters through.
Well, he didn't think a whole lot through, because if this is supposed to be like a guerrilla war, you would think maybe like camouflage your bots, maybe not paint them in bold primary colors that stick out like a sore thumb everywhere they go. That's just my 2 cents, though. I don't
He's
know.
like a suicide bomber who plans a second attack for after the first one.
Because he knows
like-
it's going to fail.
Exactly. That's the kind of shit that I'm talking about. It's ridiculous.
So that's Blitzy. Blitzy is this irritating, talentless child, not even prodigy, just this irritating little... It's her and the little kid robot that kind of pal up throughout. It's basically Snarf.
No, I really thought it was Penny from Inspector Gadget.
Penny works too. Penny and
really,
what was the robot? The dog.
Really kind of had that.
Yeah. Penny and Brain. It's basically Penny and Brain. Right? Brain the dog? Anybody?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of. So anyway, Blitzy plays kind of a big role in Setting Sun, because guess what, guys? She looks exactly like a little
Dave,
baby Bando.
if you would have said, yeah, she's basically like a dead corpse, I would have been like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, she basically is. But she's useful in the very last episode of the series called Setting Sun, because
she happens to look exactly like the president.
identical twins. Yeah. So yeah, they basically do like a what's the kind of a rescue operation, but they rescue the president's daughter and then just kind of leave Blitzy in there for a while. They're just like,
They leave her in this dangerous
in the
suggestive
rape cabin with these two just huge like brutes of men. So they got this little girl, like this little 10-year-old girl, out in the middle of the cabin, which, okay, whatever, fine. I mean, for this cartoon, fine. Until at one point they think that she like managed to escape somehow, so they like both corner her on the bed in this cabin in the middle of the woods and handcuff her, like her hands behind her head, to the bedpost. And that's where I had to pause the episode because I didn't know how real it was going to get, and I was worried for Blitzy. That's the only time I was worried for Blitzy. And I didn't want to be arrested by the FBI for watching this. So.
And right at that part, the guy who handcuffs her says, "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that somebody had to get sued for using that.
Yeah, I mean, Hulk stuff related, it's still just super, super creepy for that show. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to see you when you're angry. Someone please come in here and stop this. It's about to get really dark.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger.
Yeah.
So how did that episode and the whole series actually end? Sean,
Okay,
you want
so
to take us home?
so this is my favorite thing is that Doctor Hiss, who I wanna delve more into.
Yeah, can you describe him for people, please? Like physically.
You know when
I'm
when
gonna
you go
count your size because that's like 12.
you know when you go to the dentist and they've done like a bunch of work in your mouth and then they're just like, all right, we're gonna rinse, and then they put that little like suction thing in your mouth.
Got it.
Dr. Hiss has that in his mouth permanently.
Permanent thing.
He's got like a permanent suction, and he's got some like battery pack on his back, but he's like this bald, grotesquely
He's like
oddly
Igor
shaped
kinda,
head.
Yeah.
Don't forget about the robot leg.
He's got a robot leg. He's got like exposed organs.
Arm.
Yeah,
He just
strange.
like he's just this like sad guy who just I empathize with him. Like he just wants to be liked. The entire show, like he's just trying. He just wants a friend. Like Lady Frenzy screws him over all the time.
He wishes.
He craps on him.
Literally.
not sexually, but I mean, like she just kind of like craps on him. LLP craps on him all the time. He's actually out. He's the only villain. He's the only human villain who's ever out there in the fray during a fight or a battle, and nobody fires at him. He's just like, I'm just, I feel like his mentality is just like, you know what? If I'm gonna jump in front of laser fire, I should at least do it and die like a hero's death. Like I should just go out there and just give it my all, and like he does.
He
And,
does.
like,
He makes some crazy bots. He makes like the Beast bot, which is basically just like this giant dog on steroids.
dog on steroids. He never wins. Like he never gets
No.
any respect. Everybody seems to hate having him around. And so what happens is that he introduces like this, like it's basically like a Bill Gates character in the very last episode, and this Bill Gates-esque character has created some chip that gives these 3A robots,
Yep.
It gives them like advanced AI. And I love his justification. He's just like, it has to work. He's worked on it in his garage for over 3 years.
And that's
I was like,
actual
oh, yeah,
dialogue.
obviously.
Yeah, that's
If
actual
he's
dialogue
worked on
from
it
the
for
finale.
Yeah, it's actual dialogue. I had to write that line down. I was like, this is like, of course, he worked it in his garage 3 years. It has to work.
That's
Like, there's
gotta
no feasible way that it could fail.
Yeah. No, that's proven science.
So
3 years in a
they-
garage, it's got to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they put this chip on this 3A robot, and at the very end, with the idea that it will allow them to fight Ziv Zoolander and his boys brigade in like a smarter, stealthier way than they've been able to combat him so far.
Yeah, they basically finally got the idea. They're like, oh man, this kid, he built all our robots and he built his own specialized robots. Should we do the same thing, or should we just send all his robots after him? So for 39 episodes, they just send wave after wave after wave of faceless, terrible, poor shot robots after him, until the 40th episode, which was the last, where they're like, oh, maybe we should make intelligent robots and get after him. So it's kind of a cliffhanger if you care about the show, so it's really not because nobody does. I don't know. There might be fans out there. I have no idea.
I mean,
It's really interesting, Dave, because that.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so the scene where LLP is talking about the setting sun,
Yep.
like out of the 5 or so episodes that I watched, that and like maybe one other portion were really the only parts where I was like, okay, that's mediocre writing, which for the rest of the series was like amazing writing.
I couldn't
it's
imagine
like,
going through all 40 of those episodes. I just
like
your brain
somebody
would
just
have
dropped
fried.
your brain would have just exploded. But I was like, okay, you know what? Like they're setting it up. Like it's a good cliffhanger. Little poetic without being stupid.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole idea was that like Ziv Zoolander has rescued the President Bando's daughter, and President Bando has like sort of gained this respect for Ziv and realized that LLP is deceitful and conniving and is jockeying for this position
President of the
president.
world. Yeah.
And doing it like through any means necessary, through like any illegal means necessary. All right. And so Ziv has now kind of proven himself to President Bando that like, I'm not a terrorist. Like I'm fighting the problem, which is the RM Corp and LLP. He's like, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And the final episode is just this like advanced AI coming in and being like, oh, I figured out exactly how to kill Ziv Zoolander. Like, he will be destroyed. And then like sits in LLP's like chair.
Yeah.
And then like LLP has like this like kind of like what Matt was saying, like this like moment where he's like, oh, the setting sun, like I've never watched it before, like finally we'll have our day. I'm like, no, you stole the president's, like you kidnapped the president's daughter, and now he knows that. Like, it's not just Ziv Zoolander who's gonna try to come after you now. It's the president of the United States. Like,
Sean, it really seems like you've put a lot of thought into the plot of the show, way more than the writers ever did. We're getting a little short on time, so I want to get to a couple quick points of this stuff before we move on to kind of our wrap up and plug some stuff, and then let you guys know what's going to be coming up next week. So I can't leave this discussion without mentioning the music, because to me, it was basically like so we watched Turbo Teen. There wasn't a whole lot of ambient music going on, which was a godsend, because in this show, it was like somebody took one of those
overkill.
My God, it was like they took a Casio preset, cranked the volume to max, and then just let it run for half an hour. Like sometimes it doesn't match what's going on the screen. It's just constant. It's like people are talking, they're having like an emotional moment, and it's just like just jamming out in the background. It just drives me insane. It's basically like somebody on Ritalin just producing this show and just jamming everything that they could in there. And the last thing that I need to leave you guys with, and we'll talk about this, I don't know if you had your 3D specs or not, but it's laser time, boys!
Oh, God.
I know. I saw that in a couple of the episodes, and it was just like, wow, they're really going for that.
Why don't you tell them what it is?
They would put it in every episode,
right.
And it was this whole thing where Ziv Zoolander would queue up you to put on at home. He'd queue you up to put on your 3D glasses.
Which you could get in their toys when you bought their toys.
Yeah. Which their toys did not sell very well. And so, yeah. So the whole idea was that, like, Ziv Zoolander would just be like, it's laser time! And you would put on your 3D glasses, and they used this method that was called like the Polfrich effect or something like that to simulate 3D on television.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy when you're watching just like on 2D, because shit just kind of like moves in the screen at weird angles for no reason. It's really bizarre.
I mean, we're watching this on YouTube, so
which you can find every single episode on YouTube. We'll post a link if you guys are interested. But any final thoughts on this show from you guys? I know you've enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, I've got one. One of the episodes that we didn't mention was Flowers for ZZ. And without going into the whole thing, quick snapshot. Basically, Lady Frenzy finds a pollen that Blitzy and ZZ are allergic to, kind of puts them into a coma, and the bots have to, go out and fight to save them. The one thing that kind of like hit with me with that episode was, okay, at least it's not ZZ and to a lesser extent Blitzy controlling these robots the whole time. Like, the bots actually have to do something independently. So I was like, you know what? At least there's like a little bit of writing there that isn't completely reliant on the exact same formula every single time.
Yeah, my issue with that were a lot of things coming from like a scientific background. So they found one plant, I guess it was like a cactus flower or something like that. They converted basically a city block into making a production facility just to make this specific pollen for these two kids that are just randomly allergic to it, and it puts them into a coma.
And then never used it again.
Never use it again for 38 episodes.
Never use it again.
Never use it again. And when the boys had to go out and find more of this pollen, so the doc, which I think his name is Genesix, whatever.
It's Watson.
Oh, that's Watson? Who's Genesix?
Yeah.
What's he?
Genesix was the
he
was the guy who like created new vehicles and shit.
Yeah. Okay. So
he's the engineer.
The engineer of engineers. So so these boys had to go out and get pollen to like create an antidote. Meanwhile, the kids are sitting there in front of them on the operating table fucking coated in this stuff. That drove me completely insane.
Maybe give them a shower. Like, I don't know.
Maybe just collect the stuff and then give them an antidote. Or give them a shower and then everything's fine. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, or maybe just get them out of the clothes that's covered in the pollen. I don't know.
And save a half an hour. Yeah, I don't know. Ah, man. So are we recommending this one to anybody?
Well, here's my final thought, is that I feel like there's really a darker, more sinister story that's kind of behind all this that they never address in any of the 40 episodes. Is that Ziv Zoolander and Blitzy Zoolander do not have parents.
Uh-oh. What happened to him?
And they never discuss or talk about the parents.
That's a good
The
point.
only time that Ziv Zoolander's history ever comes into play is in an episode called ZZ Come Back, where he like runs back to his town, but they like his hometown, but like they never really discuss or like go into it. In fact, there's even an episode later in the series where they develop and they create a mom robot for all the boys, who that mom robot sacrifices herself at the end of the episode. She like basically jumps on a grenade to protect them from everything that's going on.
I'm trying not to laugh because that's terrible, but go ahead.
Here's my question.
No, it's not. They're robots.
That's why I'm laughing.
Do you think that Ziv along the line, like when he was developing these 3A robots, that like something terrible happened and that it maybe claimed the lives of his parents?
What do you think happened, Sean?
I think that that's what happened.
Who do you
I think
think
that he was creating these 3A robots and something went amok and it killed both his parents. And like as a result, like buried down deep in this like crazy psychosis that he's created for himself, like he's created this robot family like around him in order to compensate.
Well, I guess we'll never know, but you can look forward to Sean's fanfic for the Bots Master coming up after this show. We're going to close it out there. Unfortunately, I know we could probably talk about this for a little bit more because we could watch
Why
all...
would we, though?
Yeah, why would we? Let's be honest.
Why would
so
we?
Are we not recommending this one? I say check out at
No.
least one episode just to see the craziness that goes on. Watch the theme song.
Check out the
at
first
least.
episode and watch the theme
Yeah, the
song.
theme song's
song.
insane.
Well, before we sign off, I want to do a spoken word reading of the theme song.
All right, keep it short.
Bananas. But the stuff I want to plug is that this coming Friday, was it November 30th? I perform improv comedy with a group called Knox.
Holy,
That's
wait, hold
NOX.
on. November 30th?
I'm sorry, May 30th.
What in the world?
I just jumped ahead
Jesus.
months in advance. May 30th, Knox will be performing. I will unfortunately not be performing with them this weekend because I will not be available, but you should check them out regardless. You can find out tickets about them at WashingtonImprovTheater.com. They'll be performing at the DC Arts Center, or DCAC, in Adams Morgan. The following week, I will be performing in the 12th Annual Los Angeles Improv Comedy Festival, and that will be Thursday, June 5th at 9 p.m., and you can find out more about tickets at iowestcomedyfest.com.
And if you guys are interested in all that, we'll be posting all the pertinent information on the website along with this post when it goes live. You don't have to wait until November 30th to see it or check it out, but I'm sure Sean will be doing something around that time of year too. You can check us out over at SaturdayMourningCartoons.com, and that's morning with a U. You can also check us out on Twitter at MorningTunes, and that's again with a U. You can follow me on Twitter at DrClawMD and find me over at Collider.com. Sean, where can we find you on Twitter?
It's at Sean Paul Ellis.
And Matt?
I'm at MattSF07.
And Sean, do we have that Tumblr account up and running yet, or are we still populating that?
Yeah, we do. You can find us at SaturdayMourningCartoons.tumblr.com.
Excellent.
And I've been posting. I've found that there are a lot of very loving and tender moments between two of the Street Boys, Jammers and Tools.
I feel like you secretly love this show. You have like
and I continue to post a lot of the pictures and images of Jammers and Tools, basically just jamming and tooling each other.
Oh, Jesus.
So you're welcome.
Thanks for that image. So
no
yeah,
problem.
plenty of places to find us on the web, and we'll be back again next week. What are we talking about next week, guys? Do we want to tell them now? Do you know?
Thankfully not Bots Master.
Not Bots Master. Did that one. Done. Put it in the can. I'm going to say Dino Riders, and I'm real excited about it.
We're doing Dino Riders then. I'm excited.
So excited.
Love Dino Riders.
All right, Matt, do you have any final words from us today?
Only that thank God Bots Master is in the past.
Oh, but it's not yet because Sean wants to do a spoken word to take us out. So, Sean, if you're ready, take it away.
All right, cue it up. This seriously jumps between so many different people in this. I'm not even going to narrate who the
Doesn't
particular
matter.
person is. Yeah.
None of this matters.
None of this matters.
It says, none of this matters. It says, greetings from the Street Boys. You know the planet is in a jam, a diabolical plan of only one man. Louis Leon Paradim, an international punk, and his army of 3As are a piece of junk. Yeah.
What was that about?
Well, he can't fade us. He forgot about the boys. and the guy who made us, Ziv Zoolander, master of boys bots. We undermine the plot, we're the sports boys, and we're making noise. Commander Jock has intelligent droids. I'm Cook, and I can take the heat, but don't forget, you are what you eat. Call me Watson, let me swivel and say, I rock in the dock and I save the day. And Denerd is my name, and the brain is my game. I'm Genesix, any problem I can fix. My name is Ninja, the battle hinges, and how I use my sword, and while it singes. I'm Ziv Zoolander, ZZ for short. You know I fight the corp. I'm the bots master. Listen up to you all. You're the boys brigade, and when it's laser time, put on the 3D shades. Laser time, boys. And then it's like bots master.
This
like,
has been Poetry Slam from Saturday Mourning Cartoons. Till next time, see you then.
There.
And that's kids with a Z or two, right?
Kids with 1,000 Z's.
1,000 Z's, which we'll talk about in a minute. But to get into the actual episode itself, did you have any more from history for us before we?
The only big notable thing is that the guy who voiced Dr. Hiss in this, his name was Ian James Corlett. He went on to do the voice of Goku in Dragon Ball Z.
So good for him, because he obviously wasn't, putting too much food on the table with Dr. Hiss. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
He did not let Box Masters hold him back in terms of his career.
So good for that guy. But yeah, Baron, do you want to talk about Bots Master and what exactly this show was for a little bit?
Sure. So, in a nutshell, basically the year is 2025. So, we've already got a dystopian view of what's come ahead. But the robotic engineer Ziv ZZ Zoolander, and I've got a whole shtick about that name later.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Mourning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest anime series. I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore, and joining me today is DC area improv artist and comedian Sean Paul Ellis. How you doing, Sean?
David, I'm fantastic.
Are you sure about that? You sound a little stressed today, buddy.
Oh, man. I can't wait to get into this show.
Just save it. Save that energy. We're going to use it. Oh, you've tried the rest. Now try the West Coast. It's Matt Barron. That's all I got for you, man.
Peace and love, motherfuckers.
Peace and love. Very well done. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the mid-90s cartoon series, The Bots Master. Now, Sean, I know you're excited about this one, so would you like to give the listeners out there a little bit of a background?
Why bother? I mean, this show is terrible. I should preface everything with...
He created robots that became commonplace. They were called the 3A's series. Which just brought me back to like the shitty car or roadside service AAA brings, but
just not as
basically,
good.
Yeah, exactly. So Robotics Megafact Corporation, which they called RM Corp in the series, was headed up by Sir Leon Lewis Paradigm, who wants to use Krang chips to override his own robots' programming to take over the world, and he has the seductive Lady Frenzy and the abysmal Dr. Hiss helping him out. So basically it's like a porn star and Peter Dinklage, helping him take over the world. But, basically, ZZ finds out that the Krang chips are going to be used to take over the world, so he starts his one-man multi-robot guerrilla war against RM Corp and LLP to stop that from happening.
Yeah, and like Sean said, that's just like vintage 90s stuff right there. Forget the Z's, forget the acronym names, forget all that stuff that just adds just a terrible, terrible flavor to this show. But I mean, just the premise right there, it's like, robots versus robots, so everything is just completely insane on the screen, just robot pieces flying all over. Yeah.
Dave, if you just summed it up, you could just say orphan terrorist.
Orphan terrorist. That works pretty good. That sounds like
the entire show.
But that could be like a new like sci-fi series today. You could probably get away with Orphan Terrorist.
Orphan Terrorist.
That's coming. Fall 2015.
It's already in post-production at Fox.
So I want to go back to what Baron was saying. So this guy is saying everything that I'm about to say is with just disdain and hate. This show went for this is what's amazing. This show went for one season, from September 1st, 1993 to May 1st, 1994, and there were 40 episodes in this one season. That was 40 episodes too many. It was it was originally created by what was it? Saban or Saban Entertainment, however you want to say it. They're the guys who did Samurai Pizza Cats, Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, Power Rangers. They are a French-based company, and when I read that, I just went, ugh, figures.
In French.
It just everything about this just reeked like early 90s trying to be hip and relate to kids and just not getting